So yeah, this is one of those little oddball things that I started doing some research into in the last 6 or 8 months and discovered some things I didn't know, and that I don't think the hobby really knows. So here we go. So this is about the Wonnux Tribe out of Berkshire Council, Massachusetts. Berkshire Council was the council on the westernmost part of Massachusetts, the mountains of the Berkshires in Berkshire County. So here we go. So some background. The Wonnux Tribe has been generally described within our hobby as a Camp Honor Society or a pre-OA society. If you were to Google it, you would find 5 or 6 or 7 entries, and all but one of those entries that I Googled it today are really Dave Eby and Paul Meyer's, U.S. Scouts, pre-OA society listing where they, listed what they knew. And it's very, very sparse about a lot of these, what they call pre-OA societies. And one of them, it's the last one alphabetically, is the Wonnux Tribe. And it's generally been described within the hobby as a Camp Honor Society or maybe a pre-OA society associated with Camp Eagle of Berkshire Council. And I put a image up there of a Berkshire Council Camp Eagle patch. One of the interesting things, and this is true probably around the country, is it was Berkshire County Council until 1955 officially, and then it became Berkshire Council. But I can tell you that for sure in Berkshire Council and in lots of other places around the country, they went back and forth on what their documentation would say, whether it was Berkshire Council or Berkshire County Council. There are no Camp Eagle patches that say Berkshire County Council on it. And yet the camp started in 1947 under the name Camp Eagle, which is when it was officially still Berkshire County Council. So seeing Berkshire Council on these patches doesn't really mean anything in terms of when they were really put out. So Camp Eagle opened originally unnamed in 1946. It was on leased land owned by the Massachusetts Department of Natural Resources on what was called Felton Lake in Washington. And it's now part of what's known as October Mountain State Park. So that's a little bit about Camp Eagle. It was given its name officially on April 7th, 1947, and opened what would be its second year on June 29th. A little tidbit about 1946 was that the camp was only open for 2 or 3 weeks because they had a polio outbreak, and 5 scouts, very serious polio outbreak at the camp, and they closed the camp down. Anyway, 1947, now it's Camp Eagle. And the OA came to Camp Eagle in Berkshire Council on July 14th, 1954, when Penang Sunatami Lodge 507, which later became Memsahket, was created. So 46 for an unnamed camp, 47 for Camp Eagle, 54 for the OA. So keep those dates in mind. The Wonnux Tribe, and this is the patch that you saw on the title page, and this one happens to be in my collection. You can see the front and the back. It's a flocked felt. On the back, it says CIRA. I think they mean circa 1949 to 1952. Somebody wrote that on the back of the patch. I've owned it for decades and picked it up in a trade many, many, many years ago. If you see 49 to 52, that would be right in the period, after Camp Eagle was formed and before the OA came to Camp Eagle. So obviously somebody thought it was those years, and it might be. It also very well might not be. I've done some research. Newspapers.com is wonderful. I love it to death. Certain areas of the country, as Larry pointed out a little bit earlier, there aren't very many newspapers in newspapers.com, but Western Massachusetts is really good. There's 3 good newspapers that cover the period that I'm looking at, 1910 through 1960 or so, and later, that cover Berkshire Council. So it's very well covered. Anyway, my research shows that this was not formed during the period of Camp Eagle, so it was not created as a Camp Honor Society. And I think it's going to be an open question whether it's an honor society at all, but it is a very fascinating thing. So here we go. First of all, the prior camp. Prior to 1946, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, Berkshire Council did not operate a summer camp. They were using a decentralized short-term camping program to allow the boys from each one of the areas within this very rural council to go to a summer camp for 1 or 2 weeks that was near their homes. So they had a camp up in the northern part called Camp Decker, which was primarily used for camporees and such, but they used it for 1 and 2 week camping. There was a camp on Orbed Pond in the middle of the county, and there was a Camp Stevens in the lower part of the county. Very quickly, it became obvious that that the parents especially wanted their boys to go to camp for longer periods of time. And as a result, in the early 40s, scouts from the southern part of the county started going to Camp Warcomen, which is actually in Connecticut. And scouts in the northern and central part of the council started going to Chesterfield, Camp Chesterfield, later Chesterfield Scout Reservation, which was Hampshire Franklin County's council. But Berkshire Council had no camp. Okay, so there was no camp for the OA to come to in those years. The camp that was there up till 1939 was a camp that was originally called Camp Sunrise. It was on Big Pond in East Otis, Massachusetts, and my family has property in East Otis, Massachusetts, although not on Big Pond. It was open from 1929 to 1936 under the name Camp Sunrise. By 1937, they realized they were having a problem because there's a Camp Sunrise in Vermont, and there was a lot of confusion between the two camps. And the Vermont camp had been around a lot longer, and so they gave up the name Camp Sunrise and changed it to Camp Osceola, which they now call the Camp of the Rising Sun. So Camp Osceola operated on the same location, same place from 1937 through 1939. After that, in 39, they closed the camp, they put it up for sale, and they went to this decentralized camping. So there was no camp, but there's a picture of the Camp Osceola patch, quite rare. I don't own one, would love to. If you have one, call me. First mention of the Wonnux Tribe is in the Berkshire County Eagle newspaper, January 31st, 1940, talking about the countywide Boy Scout exhibit and demonstration show called the Scoutorama that was going to be held in the Pittsfield Armory in early April. And that article states, and I'll read it to you here, another feature will be Indian dancing with exhibition numbers by Field Commissioner Ralph Hendrick, George F. Morton Jr., who was the son of the Scout executive, and a group of senior Boy Scouts who have formed the Wonnux Tribe. This is a revived phase of scouting here, conceived during the recent Scoutmasters training course, which was held in October 1939. Since fall, Mr. Hendrick has held weekly meetings in preparation for the show, teaching the older boy members of the group to dance, make their own costumes, and pursue other Indian lore. Upon completion of the Scoutorama engagement, Mr. Hendrick and his group hope to teach others in this field. So this is the first mention of the so-called Wonnux Tribe. With that article was a photo, and here's a photo of young George F. Morton Jr. dancing with Ralph Hendrick, keeping the beat on his tom-tom. That would be not what you would see in the newspaper nowadays. In April 1940, early April, the Berkshire Museum in Pittsfield sponsored a presentation of Indian dances, movies, and exhibits featuring the Wonnux Tribe in the museum amphitheater. Miss Marjorie Potter of the local Campfire Girls group played the female role, and this photo appeared in the April 4th, 1940 edition of the Berkshire Eagle, talking about what I just mentioned, and they spell it as Wonnux, W-O-N-N-O-X, but it is W-O-N-N-U-X. It is a misspelling. A month later, in May 1940, Pittsfield Superintendent of Schools Edward J. Russell was inducted into the Wonnux Tribe of Berkshire Indian Senior Scouts, again spelled Wonnux, and was given the name Kolawashta, meaning good friend. And this picture appeared in the May 30th, 1940 edition of the Berkshire Eagle, talking about him being inducted into the tribe. In the next month, in June 1940, June 11th, in a piece called The Indian Lore Group Gives Party for George Morton Jr., reads that George Morton Jr., who's to leave June 24th to attend the Ralph Tent Sleep Camp in Colorado, never heard of that place before, was given a farewell party last night by the Wonnux Tribe Local Council Indian Lore Group at the Ralph Hendrick's, really Rolf Hendrick, cottage on Pontusic Lake. About 20 attended. Morton was given a diary. He was clearly a key member of the tribe. He graduated high school in 1940 and went on to attend Syracuse University that fall. Again, about a week later, June 17th, 1940 article in the North Adams Transcript. North Adams is way up in the northwestern corner of Massachusetts, which reported on the council camporee that had been held at Camp Decker, which is in North Adams. States, quote, on Saturday night at the campfire, the Wonnux Tribe of Pittsfield, workers in Indian lore, presented an Indian dance and invested George F. Morton. So now this is the Scout exec, George Morton Jr.'s dad, and William F. Condon, who was the field Scout executive and the camporee director, into membership into the tribe. And then finally, I found an item in January 15th, 1941 in the Berkshire Eagle that discusses a court of honor to be held that evening for the Central Berkshire Scouts, and Central Berkshire would be Pittsfield area, which states that at the Court of Honor, quote, an investiture ceremony will be conducted by the Wonnux Tribe of Indian Lore Scouts. That's it. I can't find anything else in the newspapers that mentions the Wonnux Tribe. I can't find anything in the years leading up to the formation of the OA in the many, and there are many articles about Camp Eagle that mentions the Wonnux Tribe. I can't find anything in the 1954 or 1955 era articles about the Order of the Arrow coming to Berkshire County that says anything about a prior group or the Wonnux tribe. So, the open questions at this part is, did the Wonnux tribe cease to exist after 1941? If so, kind of at when did it cease to exist? Or if it did cease to exist, was a new Camp Honor Society called the Wonnux tribe created at Camp Eagle? That might have happened. I have no evidence of it. If it didn't cease to exist, did the original Wonnux tribe morph into a Camp Honor Society at Camp Eagle? Again, I can't find any evidence that it did. Or has the hobby incorrectly assumed that the Wonnux tribe was Camp Eagle's pre-OA Honor Society all along, perhaps because of its Indian lore and dance focus? I don't know, but I can tell you that the only things you can find on the internet, or that I've been able to find on the internet, are the mentions that come out of the U.S. Scouts and Senior Scouts stuff that was put together by David Eby, and the 5th anniversary pamphlet put out by Pocumtuck Lodge, which is the current lodge that serves that area, which states the same thing that's essentially found in all the stuff that's online. I suspect, without knowing obviously, but I suspect that somewhere along the line, somebody went, this was a pre-OA society, without knowing anything really about it. And ever since then, that's been the given thing. The lore is that it's a pre-OA society or that it was a Camp Honor Society at Camp Eagle, but I've found no evidence that that's the case. Nonetheless, it's pretty doggone fascinating, and the patch is quite rare. And everybody that I know up in New England who collects this kind of stuff, is seeking the Wonnux Tribe patch. So that's the Wonnux Tribe.
Well, I think, from what I heard, I don't know anything, but I think there's one guy who was very enthusiastic, and he created something and brought some kids into it and wanted to honor people. It doesn't say anything about activities other than the inductions and the Indian training to do some Indian dancing. So,
yep.
And when that guy wasn't there anymore, it didn't happen,
Well, that's interesting. I did some searching on Rolf Hendricks, and I found very little on Rolf after that 1941 period. There's also, there's nothing of George F. Morton Jr. either, who was obviously his prized pupil because he went off to college. So, the only mention that goes beyond, Rolf Hendricks' graduation from high school and going off to the tent camp in Colorado is the January 1941 mention that the Court of Honor had an investiture.
Then, of course, there was the war.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The war came another 10 months after that, 11 months after that, which changes everything. And that may, of course, be why we don't hear anything about Rolf Hendricks, because although I can't really tell by looking at his picture, he doesn't appear to be an older person. He looks like he's probably in his 20s. So he might very well have gone off to war, and that might have been the end of it.